Hi again, everyone. We are back and we are ready to go on with our sessions, lectures, and talks. And we have Tatiana connected to our virtual studio. Hi, Tatiana.
Hello.
How are you? How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Also fine. Very excited for your talk. First question, where are you located right now?
I'm in Berlin, in Germany.
Great, great, great. So I guess you are an expert in those things we were discussing in the lectures chat about food calling by the names of the cities in Germany, like the donut they call Berliner in Berlin, they call sausage Frankfurter in Frankfurt, and so on and so forth. It's a booming discussion in the lectures chat. Go check it.
Yeah, I saw it in the morning, actually. Quite fascinating.
Great, yeah. So we are very excited and looking forward to your talk. Good luck with it.
Cool. I'm ready when you say.
Yes, you may start right now. Thank you.
Cool, awesome. My talk today about 5 things that you need to know about publishing games in Latin America, and specifically about publishing mobile games in Latin America, because that's what we do. Let me do a quick intro. My name is Tatiana. I have this very long Russian surname. I'm not going to pronounce it. I work as an executive producer at Etermax Gaming in Berlin. I've been in games industry for about, I think, 13 years right now. And I come from Moscow, from Russia, where I work in quite many famous companies. I moved 7 years ago to Germany, to Berlin, to work for Vuga. And since 2.5 years, I work with Etermax, and my role is taking care of everything product related in the studio that we actually started here 2.5 years ago in Germany, and that's the first European studio of Etermax. The obvious next question is, what does Etermax do? If you don't know us, we come from Latin America, and that's partly the reason I'm giving this talk today. The company was founded in Argentina in 2009, and we since then expanded quite a lot. We're a tech company, and gaming is one of our branches. Currently, for all our consumer-centric apps, we have over 700 million downloads worldwide. And for our gaming, for Trivia Crack brand in particular, we have something like 500 million downloads. As I said, we're located in many different places, but primary in Latin America. And we started the studio in Berlin, which is focusing on building new IPs, new games. For the company, we're 20 people, and so far we have launched quite a few products. Etermax is not only gaming, right? It's also centered on ad relevant things, for which we have a Flame by Etermax. We also have AI Labs, which is centered on artificial intelligence. But I will be representing the gaming department today. And if you do not know us by name, you probably know the biggest brand that we have, which is Trivia Crack. It's probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous trivia game on mobile in the world. Between Trivia Crack 1 and Trivia Crack 2, we had 500 million installs, as I said. And as a company and as a studio in Berlin, we are focusing on this type of games, on social games, on trivia games, on word games. So everything around trivia linguistics is what we're doing. In Berlin, we currently just actually launched our first mobile game worldwide. It's called Word Show. That's the icon on the left. We also got a chance to launch a Facebook instant games version of Trivia Crack. And we pushed quite a few prototypes live this year. But what am I talking about? I'm talking here about my experience with Latin American market, and as a person which was born in Russia, so many thousand kilometers away from Latin America, and I've been working mostly first with the Russian market, which is obviously centered around Russia, Europe, Asia. Then I moved to Europe. We worked a lot with European markets. We centered our efforts a lot on North American market. But personally, I never encountered so much publishing games in Latin America. And Etermax coming from this region, publishing games in this region, has quite a lot of experience that we were able to utilize to our benefit as a studio and to our benefit as, just helping us to make games. But the thing to start, and what I had to learn when I started with Etermax, it's how does the market look like in Latin America. And, if you don't know, I have a quote from Wikipedia here. Latin America is a group of countries and dependencies in the Western Hemisphere where Romanic languages such as Spanish, Portuguese, and French are predominantly spoken, which is really, really important for us because, as I said, our games are casual games for broad audience, which are very language-centric. For a person to enjoy a word game, to enjoy a trivia game, this game has to be allowing them to experience a very high quality content in the language that is their native. Otherwise, it's making this very not enjoyable. Etermax, well, as I said, comes from Latin America, and if you look at the Latin American market in terms of the revenue share worldwide, you would probably see that it's only 4% of the world, but this 4% is still $6 billion. That's a lot of money that are available for companies in this region. And an interesting figure here is that throughout all different regions in the world, that's the fastest growing one. So if you compare, let's say, Asia Pacific with Latin America, you'll still see that Latin America has 10.3% year-to-year growth rate, and that's the highest in the world. So this would keep growing, and that's why we also think that's where we're going to focus our effort. But Latin America is a huge region. It's 652 million people in this area. And obviously, if you are like us and you want to go to Latin America and try to experience there, you should pick not the whole thing, but you should focus on a few countries that are the top performing ones. So for ourselves and for the games that we launch here from Berlin, we see a pretty consistent set of countries by user-based distribution. And this is true both for mobile games and for the instant game that we have published. And our number one by user base is Brazil. Then the second one is Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, and Chile. And while Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina are wide known in the industry for being the top 3 market, for me personally, Colombia was quite a surprise, as it's often catching up by user volume with Argentina and sometimes even with Mexico, and it's kind of constant runner-up in our user base. And at some point in the game that we, for example, just launched, we even have more users in Colombia than we had in any other countries. Let's talk about top 3 here. Let's say you are new to the Latin American market and you're looking for a country where you have the biggest volume of users. Then your obvious choice would be Brazil. This country has a revenue of $380 million in mobile gaming and has 60 million users, and it's keeping to grow. It's probably the fastest growing country in Latin America in terms of mobile gaming. So when we want to get a lot of user base, we will focus on Brazil. If you're more interested in looking for tests or in looking for publishing and going for more revenue rather than user base, then your choice should be Mexico. That's the market with the highest revenue in mobile games. In Latin America, it's almost 800 million. And given the user base of 40 million mobile gamers, it's a significant advantage over Brazil. Also, this market gives you a benefit of actually seeing some player conversion, which you might not see at a high rate in any other country in LATAM. And therefore, if you're looking to test anything related to in-app purchases or CPM, that's your country to go. And number 3 for us, but obviously the most important one, as it's our country of origin, is Argentina. Argentina is the third biggest market in LATAM. It actually has almost 300 million in revenue on mobile market, but the amount of users there is not that big. It's only 10 million people. So this market is quite versatile. And we, during our testing, primarily use this one because it allows to tackle different metrics. So why would you, or why should we publish games in Latin America when there are so many more users everywhere else in the world, and there is so much also money available everywhere else in the world? Well, what I learned is actually this market provides probably the best cost per install anywhere where we did launch our games. So traditionally, from my experience, we in early phases of soft launch, early phases of development, we would focus a lot on Southeast Asia, as it's quite easier to get users at high volume there. But since we started with Etermax, we started publishing our games in Latin America, and what we saw is that CPIs are significantly lower, while retention stays on the same level. So in our case, recently, we soft launched a game in Vietnam and Argentina, and what we saw in Vietnam is a CPI of $1.45, and in Argentina is zero. It's 37 cents. While retention in Argentina was actually higher, which is really important. So what we do, we use Latin America as our soft launch playground because we're easily acquiring users there for a very good price. And what we also saw in our games is that once we start building something in, let's say in Argentina, in this case on Android, and then we open up more countries and bring up more content for the languages that are spoken in these countries, such as, for example, in Germany, we see pretty consistent retention between the two. So in this example, I have Argentina on Android, Germany on Android for the game that we soft launched recently, and metric are almost identical for retention. Therefore, we can test much earlier, more efficiently. And the other thing for us that is pretty crucial, as I mentioned before, is this language monogamy. As we're building board games, we're building trivia games. If we're to go to, let's say, Southeast Asian region, in order for these games to perform, we'll have to localize in the multitude of languages for each country of the region. Whereas while we are publishing in Latin America, we only have to do two, right? For example, we can just localize a game in Portuguese and we'll have the whole Brazil at our disposal, and same for Spanish. And Spanish is even better because then we can progressively extend the amount of countries we're publishing in. But obviously, it's not so straightforward. The trick is that, yes, while you have great CPIs, you have a lot of users, conversion to buyers everywhere but Mexico is almost insignificant. In recent soft launch, for example, we had only 3% of revenue coming from in-app purchases in Latin America. And the CPMs are also not pretty. CPMs are proportional to CPI. So if you're looking for a fast way to get revenue, or if you're looking to soft launch something and test monetization, it's really not the best place to be at. And another problem that everyone faces is a very high volume of low-end devices. An example here would be that in the game that we launched just now, the two devices that we see the most are Samsung Galaxy J2 Prime and Apple iPhone 7, which are really not top of the market. So it affects the performance of the game and the graphic features that were available to launch. Plus, according to a study from Google, I think it was in Brazil, most of the people have less than 1 gigabyte of free space in their phone. Therefore, the size of application is really significant to the players in the region. And the third problem is here in this graph that's from our instant game is the revenue, as I said, would be so much less than, let's say, North America. And even, as you can see here, in this game in particular, we do have a lot of players in Mexico, a lot of players in other regions of Latin America, but despite US is only 14%, it still represents 64% of revenue in the game. And this is quite significant for everything that we publish. And the last thing I wanted to cover, since we only have 15 minutes, is what do people play and what are the challenges of a mobile publisher. And the thing is that people still do play more console games in Latin America than they play mobile games. It's a big investment to buy a good phone, and phones have to be changed more frequently than a console that you buy for an extended period of time. Therefore, compared to the rest of the world, the market share of mobile is lower in Latin America. Plus, for a long time, there's a problem of mobile network penetration, where 5G is almost not a thing, and 4G is available in big regions, but it's also much worse than what is in the rest of the world in Asia. So for us, it's one extra challenge. We'll have to wait until mobile market is the biggest for gaming. What did I want to say in the end? That for many publishers, at least for me, it was a very new thing to go to Latin America, try publishing games there, seeing if there's potential and or if there is not. But actually, it turned out to be a great thing for us because we're able to push our games for a very cheap price, experiment very fast. Localization is very simple as Spanish is predominant, and that helps us then to extend our application to the global market. And I think that's it for me. I'm precisely on time.
Yeah, Tatiana, thank you very much for sharing your experience and for the insights on how did you invade the Latin American market. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask a question? So,
Yeah, sure.
Entering such like a complex and uncertain market like Latin American one might be very challenging for a game developer. So my question is, what is the ideal stage of the game development and distribution from your own perspective to start thinking about entering such market as a Latin American market? So should that be prior to like going to tier 1 countries, or after when you are looking for some additional sources to monetize your game?
Yeah, certainly not the second one. I think the best case scenario is actually just soft launching the game there instead of soft launching the game in the South Asian region, because it's so much cheaper and you can actually get a very good idea on the metrics for retention, for session length, and for performance. But the amount of money you could say is pretty much like half of your marketing budget for the Southeast Asia. So as early as possible, and I think it's actually very smooth, at least for us. That's the case.
All right, so thank you. So means we have to go soft launch the games in the Latin American market. Thank you for that. And we have a question from the lectures chat. Olga Deputatova asks, which Spanish version did you opt for the soft launch? Meaning there are some various Spanish versions like Peruvian, Mexican, Castilian Spanish, or other ones. Which one did you use?
Yeah, we use Argentinian Spanish because we primarily soft launch in Argentina.
Okay, thanks a lot. Olga, you should note it. And also another question from Sean Godkin. Tatiana, you mentioned the similarity between Argentina and Germany in the soft launch phase. Do you do any hyper localization that may impact the numbers?
Hyper localization. I actually never heard this term before.
Well,
but you want to say something?
So I guess Sean's meaning like some localization of the version from Spanish market to Germany, or how are they in the comparison?
Yeah, actually, we do mostly war games, right? And that's a very tricky thing to adapt. But all our content is built on the same set of rules. And obviously, everything that we published is fully localized per region, per country, and even per different Spanishes. But because there is a lot of just metrics describing each single level and each single part of the game, it's pretty easy for us to adapt. Right, but yeah, of course, we do localize everything. We use proper German dictionaries or Spanish dictionaries to verify the content that we do have.
All right. Thank you very much. And I believe we have a minute for the last question. And it's from Monsaf. He asks us what's more profitable on ad monetization side. So I do not quite remember if you have ad monetization or in-apps mostly. But the question is, what's more profitable, Latin America or Asia? But I believe
Yeah, Asia is more profitable, at least from what we saw, but we do have more presence in Latin America. So by sheer volume, we see more revenue from there. Though, again, for maybe some of our cases are quite specific because word games are difficult to localize in several Asian languages, right? But like CPMs would be slightly higher in Southeast Asia.
Okay, well noted. Thank you very much, Tatiana, for the great talk, for the insights, and for answering the questions of the audience.
Cool. Thank you very much. It was awesome to talk here.
Oh, yeah, same here. A pleasure likewise. Take care and goodbye.
Ciao, ciao.